Good afternoon and welcome to the last of the digital discussions for CMC 2025, Built to Last. I'm David Kleeman, Senior Vice President of Global Trends for Dubbit, and I get the privilege of trying to steer this Ferrari for the next hour, because we do indeed have a Ferrari of a panel. Surprisingly, we don't have a sponsor for this panel, so there will be volunteers going up and down the aisles with baskets. We'll cash, crypto, Robux, we'll take it all. The other note is I know that last night was the party, you're just coming from lunch, the room has been warm, you're welcome to sleep, just don't snore. So before we go on to the panel though, I want to get the privilege also of introducing another of CMC's Changemakers. This is the 10th anniversary of the Changemakers program. There have been 99 Changemakers thus far. We get the pleasure of having the 100th Changemaker for today's session. So representing the hashtag #IWill movement, a UK-wide initiative empowering young people to take social action and make a positive difference in their communities, Melvin Riley is responsible for technology, is a responsible technology and digital equity advocate. Tech content creator, and he founded the National Youth Technology Council, the UK's first youth-led organization dedicated to addressing the challenges of digital and emerging technologies, shaping policy and governance and innovation. To tell us more, Melvin Riley.
Growing up in this digital age, I remember getting my first phone. I was about 10. I was so excited to explore this whole new world. I thought it was all about connecting with friends, going on the internet, watching games, all that sort of stuff. And that was all true. But all good things come at a cost. And I later realized something unsettling, that we're essentially tech companies' guinea pigs. We're being shaped, tracked, and influenced in ways that we didn't understand, our families and society. Every search, every like, every click was feeding into algorithms that controlled what we saw, heard, and believed. We weren't just users, we were the training data. We tell children to be safe online, then hand them platforms, games, and apps designed to track, retain, and shape them. We filter content, but ignore the algorithms that promote it. We create powerful, meaningful stories wrapped in dark patterns and addictive UX. Online safety isn't working because it's an illusion. Not built for power, it's built for optics. Just this year, the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, highlighted an urgent need to protect children's privacy online, calling out social media platforms and apps for exploiting young users' data, with these systems leaving young people vulnerable. That's why I launched the National Youth Technology Council. The UK, well, we're not a charity, we're not a campaign group. We're the UK's first youth-led tech for good platform, building real-world solutions that challenge digital and emerging technologies and how they're developed, governed, and held accountable. Building the systems we wish we had when we first went online. We build tangible tools that become part of digital infrastructure. Our approach is a fast model connected by 4 interconnected labs. So our first lab is our research and data lab. This is all about finding the challenges that affect young people and bringing them to the surface. The next part of our lab is the tech innovation. So that's all about translating them insights from the data into tools and solutions. The next step is the policy lab, translating those tools into standards and regulation, approaching policy innovation with pre-built tech solutions that keep up with the pace of technology development, so governments can't make an excuse. And the final part of our labs is the media and culture labs. It's all about translating what we're building into something that's understandable for society. There's a massive issue in society around technical information translated into things that are understandable for the average person. So this is how we go from insight to action to impact, and really back to insight. So at the NYTC, we asked the question, what if online safety wasn't just about protection? What if it was about power? That's why we're building Certified for Youth. This is one of our first tech solutions. It's the world's first youth-led digital rights certification for technology and media platforms used by those under 18. So everything from streaming platforms and GPTs to gaming and social media. Think of it as the B Corp for youth tech ethics, a trust seal that verifies whether a tech or media platform actually protects, respects, and empowers young people by design. While legislation like the Online Safety Act tried to play catch-up, we're building a system where responsibility is the default. So here's how it works. Step one is a self-assessment. Companies assess themselves on privacy, UX design, inclusion, AI transparency, and governance. Our AI, using NL, natural language processing, scans the answers, flags risks, and suggests improvements. Step two is a youth-led tech audit. So trained youth auditors with expert support test the platform, review the code, challenge assumptions, and explore real user journeys. If they pass, they move forward. If not, they get a remediation plan. Step three is a transparency dashboard. So every scorecard, flag, and fix is made public. Whether you pass or fail is also made public. But the good thing about this dashboard, a young person who's using any social media or media platform can report these platforms using an Ofcom style system, but more accessible for young people. And step four is the Youth Digital Rights Charter, a binding contract written by youth, not PR teams. It demands privacy-first design, inclusive, bias-aware AI, no dark patterns, transparent governance, youth voice, early and often. You either earn the seal or you don't. It's reviewed annually and it can be revoked. Because online safety shouldn't be optional, it should be expected. So now imagine this. We live in a world where every app your child downloads comes with a C4Y seal, like a nutritional label for tech, a simple symbol that says, this platform respects your child's privacy, safety, and dignity. That's the world we're building, and we want you to help us build this. So if you truly care about young audiences, don't just build for them, build with us. C4Y isn't here to criticize creators. It's here to support those who are doing the right thing and give them the standards they can be proud to meet. So if you work in media, gaming, technology, safeguarding, or an investor, join our co-design network, pilot the C4Y framework, and help shape the first generation of tech worthy of young people's trust. Because the future of technology isn't just about what we build, it's about who gets to build it. So do you want to be a barrier, or do you want to be part of the solution? Thank you.
Melvin, I can't imagine that we could have had a better introduction to this panel. I'm very glad that you're going to stay up here with us. I think if we've been listening over the course of the week, we know that there's an ongoing dialogue. This is not a push world anymore, but this is an ongoing dialogue among technology makers, content creators, and by content creators, we really mean now throughout the cycle, from children making things all the way up through professional studios, and then also with the audience, that we have to be in constant dialogue with the audience. We've been hearing terms all week like value, quality, engagement, fandom, and that really requires that you have that ongoing circle of conversations going on that never stops because technology keeps changing, content innovation keeps going. In a bit of fortunate but almost certainly not accidental timing, the DCMS announced this week that it would hold an inquiry into children and media, children and video and television, which really set the stage for a lot of the conversations that have gone on already and really that is going to go on today with this panel. Before we launch in with everyone, I just want to kind of frame a little bit. At the core of the challenges, from what we've been hearing this week, to launching new franchises in children's media, I think we're hearing that traditional methods are failing, but the new pathways present issues of their own that we've heard about throughout the week. Commissioning of new content is down really across the board, whether it's streamers, broadcasters, anywhere. New content is down. It's more likely to get a commission, but still difficult if you're delivering on something, an IP from another platform, something that's already proven itself in print, in video, or in film, in toys, somewhere else. Or to get a renewal sometimes can be easier. Public service media worldwide is threatened. Right now in the US, we're just waiting to see if the US Senate not only cancels funding for public broadcasting, but claws back last year's funding. Increasingly, new content is being launched on digital platforms, and there are a lot of people who predict right now that the next billion-dollar company is going to start on Roblox. If you were here this morning for the Roblox panel, you would have heard that Grow a Garden, one of the most popular game right now on Roblox, had 21 million simultaneous players last week. 21 million people all playing the same game at the same time. YouTube has won this. I think we have to say YouTube has won the TV wars, whether it's on a mobile, whether it's on a tablet, whether it's on a flat screen in the lounge. For young people, YouTube is me TV. Whatever your passion, whatever your curiosity, whatever your fandom, whatever question you want answered, you're going to find something to suit on there. Theoretically, that should mean that there's limitless opportunity for all of you content creators out there to find to create a sustainable audio, franchise by being out there and finding your group, your fandom, your passionate audience. But many creators find an audience on the platform, but not a big enough one to be sustainable for them. A small number of creators really hit it big on the platform, on YouTube, do extremely well. Some of those have used YouTube as a launch pad to other places. You think about The Amazing Digital Circus, which was, after only 2 episodes on YouTube that really went viral, Netflix decided it wanted to distribute it too. And that's turned to an interesting pivot of power, that when Netflix said it wanted to distribute it, Glitch, the studio behind it, said, that's great, but we will keep the creative control. It will always be released on YouTube before it goes to Netflix. We'll keep the merchandising and licensing. So that's a big turn of power in the industry. The flip side of limitless opportunity is limitless content, and leading to a fragmented audience, the paradox of choice among kids and audiences, and FOMO. Whatever I chose, maybe there was something better that I could have chosen. With over 5 billion videos on YouTube and 40 million games on Roblox, growing, in each of those cases, discovery has become the big new challenge. And with restrictions on advertising and on certain kinds of viewer comments, I think promoting discovery, achieving fandom, monetizing have become extremely difficult for children's content. I think I was trying to figure out how to sum up this opening and throw to Pete Robinson, and I picked up the hymnal, the Children's Media Foundation yearbook, and I was looking at the back cover, and they had a little excerpt from Frank Cottrell-Boyce's talk the other night. And I think he says it better than I ever could. He said, how are we going to make daring, genius, and graft pay in a world where shows are streamed for frictionless hours on end and where companies think AI can do the job? These are the challenges before us. I'm really pleased to turn to my frequent panel partner, Pete Robinson, to tell us a little more about historical perspectives on the algorithmic platforms, what's changed over time, and thoughts on how they do and don't serve our audiences. Pete.
Thanks, David. And I think one thing we've discussed before, one thing that's not changed over time is we're still having this conversation.
100%.
We still don't have a solution, which is why it's great to have Melvin here. He's thinking about solutions. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit. In 2012, when I first met David, we were preparing to present at KidScreen on a platform that was starting to emerge. You were perhaps working there at that stage. It was a side conversation at media conferences. And in that year, as context, Reed Hastings was defending a price hike. Everyone thought Love Film was going to win and Netflix was going to go bust. Ended up. Moshi Monsters was huge before mobile was big. So it was this great big game, and then mobile came along and Roblox and everything else changed that whole space. David and I were talking about YouTube, and at that stage there was 1 billion monthly users. It was already a huge platform, but in the kids space we weren't really talking about it massively, even though kids were using it. There's obviously 3 times more monthly active users now. The revenue's gone up tenfold, so YouTube's figured out how to monetize, and that, of course, is driven by the algorithm. we tracked how kids used YouTube. So we basically, in Germany, the UK and US, we took over kids' devices, and basically everything they did on YouTube, we collected. And we built a typology, trying to understand like this new platform that was taking over, like how were kids built into segments, into groups, like what were their journeys through this platform looking like? At the time, YouTube was just this, it was really, really difficult because YouTube was just this insane, serendipitous like way of exploring content. Kind of curiosity drove the user journey, and we had like videos, user journeys that started with skateboarding failures and ended up with kids joining a skateboard community in a totally different country, a different part of the world. We had like Lego stop motion animation. You had all the way down from a kid in his bedroom through to these experts that were building these amazing sets, talking and communicating with each other about how to get better at doing stop motion, how to get better at doing Lego. We have Minecraft worlds that have been built. Minas Tirith was a really famous one. We were at Dubbit at the time, one of the Dubbit guys that recreated the whole of Leeds, pretty much. They were doing all these amazing things, through to people who were just building a trampoline in their back garden on Minecraft. But again, they were in this community, which was a big theme in the Roblox conversation. PewDiePie was doing daily walkthroughs. People stopped to watch the daily walkthrough. They didn't go and find other content. They waited for his daily launch every day because it was scheduled. Like YouTube was scheduling people, and Charlie was biting fingers as well at the time. And it was all creator-led. Whether it was a big creator or a little creator, it was all creator-led. And the journeys made sense to the user. It's interesting, Melvin, what you said about they were the data, and I'll come on to that in a second. But at that time, you start with an interest, and if you liked it, you went deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And all of a sudden, we had these kids that were kind of exploring passions and finding people who shared these passions all around the world and becoming masters of their space. And we built a few models off it, anatomy and emotional scheduling, which helped us try and understand the world that existed and that the kids were in, so we could try and program and make content better for them in these kind of like non-scheduled spaces. And it was just a treasure chest of exploration. Henry Jenkins was calling kids hunter-gatherers. And it was a really, really interesting space. Well, we redid the study 5 years later and presented it again at Kids Screen. It might have been 4 or 5 years, but it's a long time ago either way. Same typology. Really, really similar results. So when we mapped it out, we had all these niche groups of content. And once people started a niche group, they went into these deep interests. They might start with like short, accessible, funny clips, then they move into Easter egg content, fan theories, and then eventually they become the experts and the content makers themselves because they knew that space, that brand so well. But this time there was a big, big difference in the user journeys that we found because the brands were there. So a kid would start on a Minecraft journey in creating Rio or the Eiffel Tower, but then along the way, as they were meandering through, a brand appeared, and then the brand stayed. UGC was not Charlie biting fingers anymore; it was Nike, and it was these huge brands in the space, and they were paying to take that space as well. And it kind of changed what YouTube stood for. So it went from being serendipitous journeys through all these fandoms that they had to channel-like experiences fed by brands with lots of dollars and could use the algorithms to create kind of certain behaviors. Social platforms, we're talking about YouTube, but we spoke about Roblox, Minecraft, Amazon, Google, Facebook. All of these guys have these highly optimized algorithms designed to kind of feed their model, which is ad spend and click-throughs. The algorithms are trained on historical engagement data, so like watch time, likes, completions, and they predict what will help keep us watching. We see it now with YouTube Shorts, especially doing it really, really well. Those algorithms don't know what good is, and neither do we sometimes, but they don't know what good quality is. What they know is what's sticking. They know, when people click, pause, scroll, move on to something else. It's training that big system. I don't know if this is true, but I found a stat that said the average YouTube homepage is tailored using over 80 billion parameters. So every refresh is a remix of machine-learned behavior from billions of users past and present, which is amazing, but what it means is the algorithm is built on probability, not curiosity. I work in data, I like probability. There's a reason why I work in data and feed creative people, because it's really important to have the creative driving it. And we spoke earlier, Greg, Roblox is going through a really similar journey now. Now, it's not a case of bashing these platforms, which I think, historically sometimes we have done. They're doing a really good job at entertaining and creating great content for young people. I've spent a lot of time on those platforms as well. The challenge, though, is that the problem is heightened for kids. It's become an increasing issue now as AI starts to take over, especially at the pace we're doing it. What happens is it learns from behavior that keeps us sticky and keeps us on and gives us more of that content. So it's not giving us diverse content, it's actually doing exactly the same. And I was thinking about my own YouTube and internet usage and how infrequently I don't find new content and stick with the stuff I know because it serves me the stuff I know. And that's happening for kids as well. And not only that, the big problem here we've got is it doesn't actually create a model that works for new studios who are creating content and placing that content. We're not helping them monetize effectively enough. I spoke with someone recently who had over 500 million content views on YouTube and wasn't generating massive amounts of cash despite being really successful at creating that audience. Platforms also need this. People need to have good experiences and have good content on those platforms. If people aren't being paid to put good content on the platform, the quality of the content declines. I think that'll be the driver that changes the way that the system and the monetization model works. Not the other things will be actually the fact that these platforms stop making as much money because they're not driving good content to the right audience. And I'm glad we've got the people here talking because everyone here is creating, thankfully, good content. So just to finish off on, my concern, and one of the reasons when we start talking with Greg and the panel about this, is we are damaging future content experiences. The algorithmic served content will ultimately end up, as it has done with the adult space, with two different types of content, black and white, left and right. Kids will be given two binary choices because the algorithm is trained to give them optimized journeys through that spaces. And we know that kids don't have two binary choices in their life. They have a really colourful world that allows them to pick lots of content and grow up to become an adult that has, personally has, good emotional regulation, has good physical regulation, has those skills that allows us to grow up and become a better human being. And I think with that, I'll pass back over to David. Quite a depressing point to start on.
No, it frames what we're here to figure out, which is that YouTube and Roblox and as platforms get bigger, they become Jumanji, essentially. Fun for some, but not for all. But the great thing is we have three panelists who have found ways to make these platforms work for them. And I've got a question to sort of introduce them for each one individually about how they're using these platforms in particular. I want to start with Greg Dre from Animage. You come out of the YouTube world, you worked with YouTube for quite a while, and based on what Pete's described, this idea of the evolution of platforms to favor the big studios and the MCNs and such, how has that influenced the development of Animage as a company?
It influenced the development of Animage in a really big way because we are a company that is focused on the acquisition of existing IPs. And we are putting most of our focus on existing IPs with pretty large YouTube footprint. So to give you an example, our flagship today flagship brand is Pocoyo. Pocoyo is actually the very first kids brand that launched on YouTube back in 2007.
Really?
And and it is a major competitive advantage because obviously you were talking about the algorithm. Pocoyo over the years, has been able to send, millions, if not billions, of signals to the algorithm, which makes the brand favored when it comes to being recommended by the YouTube systems. So to answer your question, we are focusing our efforts on brands that have an existing and pretty large YouTube footprint, Pocoyo being a great example, because we are a company whose North Star is to build franchises, brand franchises, and if today you're not able, or you don't have critical mass on YouTube, it has become virtually impossible to even have the ambition or the dream to build a global franchise. I mean, YouTube is the first screen for kids, attracts more than 400 million kids globally in the world, we've never seen in the history of media a platform so dominant in kids' lives. So audiences and kids love YouTube. It's great. So we're not here to bash YouTube, obviously, because YouTube did a great job to democratize kids' content. The big problem today is that the monetization model is broken. So what happened, I mean, there were days before January 2020 when life of kids creators was absolutely fantastic. Okay, it's absolutely fantastic because kids content was monetized the same way as other types of content on the platform, including with targeted advertising, which is not a good thing. January 2020, YouTube, as a result of a fine, the largest fine ever by the FTC in the US, $170 million, was forced to change its privacy practices and stop serving targeted advertising and collect kids data on YouTube. And so this change was enabled at the beginning of January 2020. All of a sudden, overnight, monetization for kid creators fell on average by 50%. And since then, the ecosystem didn't recover. Why? Because it's very simple. YouTube's monetization model is built around targeted advertising. Kids content is the only category of content on YouTube that is monetized differently with contextual advertising only. YouTube is not willing and will not be willing and will never be willing to invest enough efforts into contextual advertising. Why? Not because they don't like the category. It's because the size of the opportunity for them in terms of advertising revenue is extremely small. Extremely small. It's approximately 1 billion, maybe a bit more. Just to give you a sense of context, YouTube's advertising revenues only, this year will hit $50 billion. So kids is, I mean, this is not their focus. This is not their focus. So we have a big problem because we have a platform that dominates the category, a platform that kids love, a platform where you have most of the kids' audience today, but a platform where you cannot monetize or where you can barely monetize your eyeballs. So how can we solve that problem? We are one of the very few companies in the kids and family space with the ability to directly commercialize our advertising inventory on YouTube, but there are five companies in our space enjoying that feature because we have critical mass and et cetera, and because also we have decided to invest into the creation of an internal ad sales team. To do what? To do what YouTube is not doing, which is more actively monetizing kids' content with contextual advertising, but also using the traditional method that has been used on TV, for example, for decades, reservation media, as opposed to auction media. Reservation media, it's media space that you book well in advance. We just need to hope that we're going to be with a few other companies, we're going to show the way, and by taking control, of our destiny, taking control of the monetization, doing what YouTube is not doing, we're going to be able to push the industry forward and show that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
So kind of point one is finding a way to fix this conflict that kids are among the biggest audiences on the platform, but they don't want to. Between regulation and between.
And I think you have you probably have the numbers. I think Netflix recently said that 15% of the viewership on Netflix was kids content. On YouTube, so they will never say it publicly, my old colleagues, but I mean, I'm now a bit more free to give to give you some insight. On YouTube, it's even higher. It's even higher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kids content is super popular on YouTube, but unfortunately, I mean, we are stuck today in a situation where basically the audiences are there, but it's extremely complicated to monetize the audiences around kids content.
So that leaves medium-sized companies in a difficult spot. And Alison Warner from Blue Zoo, you have had success on the YouTube platform. How, as a medium-sized company, have you managed that ability to find an audience, to engage an audience, to keep them, to monetize to the extent that you want to?
So, afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. It's hot and everyone's tired, but hopefully keeping you awake. What I'm going to use specifically is to talk about one of our series of shows, which is the blocks. And we kicked off with Alpha Blocks, I think back in 2012, and then by 2017 we had Number Blocks, and then after that Color Blocks, and now Wonder Blocks, which is actually teaching the very first elements of coding. And this was a show that was commissioned by the BBC, and they partly funded it, but they didn't fully fund it. So all the rights to the blocks in the UK went to the BBC, and we made a commitment to invest in it ourselves, which meant that we had the rest of the world available. And for something like the blocks, which is an educational show, but it's very sticky because it's fun, funny, kids love it, it's engaging, and they have character behind it. So we knew we had a winning formula, but to go out and talk to some of the more traditional broadcasters, we were hit with, we can do it ourselves. No, we're not interested. You know, one or two picked it up. And then there was a change because the pandemic came along, and we made a call to Netflix, who said, yes, we would like to try it because every kid was at home and more content was needed. And at the same time, we'd actually built up a small presence on YouTube, and we had outsourced that to Little Dot, who were acting as an agency on our behalf. So pandemic hit, and suddenly the blocks started gaining interest. And we made the decision to bring all digital back in-house. So I always say I'm very thankful that we also hired Stephanie Gould, who is our head of digital, as she's ex-BBC, ex-Club Penguin. And she has steered the blocks into becoming a franchise internationally. So we have a situation where in the UK, Lydia and her team look after the blocks, and we work with them. We know what they're doing, they know what we're doing. But we're putting out something that's very holistic. So we have now, I think it's around 35 million hits on blocks a day outside of the UK. And I think 32 million subscribers. So it is huge. And we have built a team of people that is looking to not only utilize the content that we've made on traditional platforms, but also then to use it holistically. So when you look at the different social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, which is where kids are going, TikTok, which mostly is the parents going there, and particularly young parents as well, or Instagram, we are feeding that machine constantly with content. We're thinking about what can we tell the parents, what's going to be interesting to the kids online. We utilize everything about YouTube. We have a very good relationship with them. There is all kinds of aids and events that they put on. So, for example, right now you have Club Summer Camp on YouTube. And if you go and look up Number Blocks, you will see that we've got a banner saying that. Mm-hmm. And these are published events by YouTube that you can choose to feed into or not. But if you do, you will then see an uplift in the number of viewers that you get. So our approach has been very much, what can we do internationally? And then how we started to grow and make it sustainable is that we worked alongside with the traditional broadcasters as well. So a really good example of this is that a deal was cut with HBO Max in Latin America for number blocks, and they dubbed it into neutral Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese. And they put it out, and it did okay. But we took the decision to invest in those dubs, and it's 50% of the cost, so that we could then use them in all other territories where neutral Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese was being spoken. Today, the number of viewers that we have that are accessing those dubbed, that dubbed content is the same as the English content. It has gone through the roof. And what has then happened is that HBO Max started seeing a spike with their viewers in number blocks. And for them, it was a nice-to-have show. They quite liked it, but didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. And then suddenly they were like, what's going on here? And it was because we were actually active on YouTube promoting it, which was then driving more viewers to them. So I think in terms of a medium-sized business, how are we doing this? We're looking at it very holistically. So we want to work with broadcasters in a traditional sense, but also we want to harness the events that are going on with YouTube, capture the parents that are on TikTok. It means that there is a lot of work. We have 20 people now working full-time in our digital team. And I would say that the money that comes back in pays their salaries, tiny bit afterwards, but it's not going to be...
But it's not there to be
it's not there.
The big money.
It's about building that franchise.
The franchise.
Yeah.
Just a free idea for you, now that you've got number blocks and letter blocks and all that. The next one should be Roblox. Have you
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a word about it.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Lydia Masahebi from BBC.
Hello.
You have, to my mind, all the things that Pete was talking about that should lead to success on these platforms. You've got size, you've got recognition, you've got reputation, deep audience relationships, and that. So what's the evolution of using YouTube? I know there was reluctance for quite a while to use YouTube, but how's the evolution now to using the platform?
Yeah, I think I know we talked about it a lot and the challenges that people have on YouTube. We experience the same. It's not like we go in there and we think, we're winning at it. We still have the same discoverability challenge. At the end of the day, it's a global platform. The BBC has recognition as a brand to some extent internationally, but there are a lot of users who don't know who we are. And there is a lot of potential kids who don't know who we are as well. I think for us, we say it an awful lot that we need to be where the audience are. It's part of our remit. So for us, what we're doing on YouTube is really looking at how do we reach that audience who are spending time there, introduce the BBC if they haven't come across us before, but really build that connection and relevance to bring them back. Like, we are all about using YouTube for promotional use to bring the audience back to us. I think over the last few years, the BBC has thought a lot about how YouTube sits in that ecosystem, how it sits alongside our own VOD platform. I think what we are doing now is we are looking to be on YouTube more robustly, I'd say. So we have a portfolio of children's accounts on YouTube. They historically have done an awful lot of clips and compilations from our shows, stuff like blocks, just great for us. It's a really great way for us to launch new shows and re-promote them. And that's brilliant, and we've had great growth on the channels doing that. But what we want to do is something a bit more and a bit more valuable for the audience. So we're trying to create a richer brand experience there. So what we're doing on CBeebies, we launched some live streams that are curated. They feel like our CBeebies house. So they're presenter-led. They've got that loveliness that CBeebies is known for, translated into a YouTube way. So that's been something we've started doing. It's a really great way to experiment with the platform. And what we're starting to do now is we're looking at YouTube first commissioning. So we're commissioning shows that are YouTube native, feel YouTube authentic, speak to the audience in the way they expect to. with the values that the BBC has and what we're known for. And those shows will also sit on iPlayer as well. So we've got CBeebies House, which is in production at the moment, that uses our CBeebies House presenters, who are so well loved and well known with kids, and we know that. And they're really bringing something that is so valuable and public service to the platform. So I think we have more of an appetite than we did before, and we know how important it is for the audience, but also for building brands and how it fits as part of the ecosystem. So we're looking to do something a bit different on there.
I want to throw a bit of a curve at all of you, just because as I've been listening to you, I've had a sudden attack of anxiety that we have a CMC audience that is often largely made up of small presenters or small creators, of individuals who have a great idea and are trying to get it discovered and trying to build the next franchise. Say something hopeful for them, please, about how they can be on this platform without 20 people managing the feed or the backing of a BBC or something. Can you say something hopeful for these?
I can
Please.
go. I'm not going to solve all the problems, but I'm going to try. I think one thing that we do quite a lot of, and I think maybe is worthwhile considering if you're looking to move into this space, is the great thing about working in digital is there is a lot of data out there. You can find an awful lot out about your audience. You can put stuff out there and you can test and learn. And one thing that we do an awful lot of is we look at where the data is showing us there are opportunities. And I think sometimes that isn't considered in the mix. But I think the whole community here is amazing at creating wonderful stuff for kids. And there is a lot out there that tells you what they're looking for. So we use a lot of SEO research to do that, to tell us what's happening on those digital platforms, what kids are searching for, what they're searching for where there aren't many search results, shows you there's an opportunity to move into that space. I think that coupled with audience insight and understanding what kids' behaviours are like and what they're into and what's trending, combining those two things can give you a really good idea of what kids are looking for, and then you can design content to fit that. I think sometimes you'll get into a real challenge if you create something brilliant and wonderful and then try and retrospectively think about how to get it discovered. So I think that would be my top tip if you're looking to sort of explore this space, is how you can use that data that's there and often freely available.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Please. Yeah, I was going to say that obviously what's happened with us is that we have managed to build that team organically. I mean, we started off with just one series and now we've got several. So it's over a period of years. Yeah. But we do encourage people within Blue Zoo to actually experiment. And, one of the disadvantages of being a medium-sized studio is that we have an overhead and we're not a single creator that can actually say, you know what, I'm going to give this my best shot. We always look for creators. So we actually have within Blue Zoo, we put it out to the Blue Zoo Hive. What would you like to do? What would you like to experiment? So one of the tiny pieces of content that we have out there is something called Silly Duck, which is a very daft, very tiny show, which has a singular creative voice. It's a guy called Alex Smith, and we are just drip feeding that, and it's then all about looking at the research, looking at the algorithm, seeing what's happening. So you can do things in a very tiny way, and because you do have that data, you can start building up what's working and what isn't working. So
you have the opportunity to pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Greg, you.
Yeah, I think this is a focus on the audience. I mean, this is very liberating to have the opportunity to work directly for the kids and directly for your audiences, rather than maybe in the old days, work more for a broadcaster or, a platform. So you have a direct relationship with your audience and you get lots of feedback. So it's really about testing, learning, iterating all the time. So this is, and this can be really liberating for creators. The other element I would add is that YouTube is dominant today, yes, but YouTube is the present. It's not necessarily the future. So I personally think that Roblox is a new YouTube, or has the potential to become the new YouTube. So David was mentioning that YouTube had a large presence at CMC, workshop yesterday in particular. So it really struck me that the workshop they did yesterday was exactly the same I did 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I mean, the industry was still, not taking YouTube very seriously. So my best piece of advice would be for us, as an industry to take really seriously the new platforms, the up-and-coming platforms. And Roblox might be the next YouTube. Mm-hmm. So I think Roblox today, it's YouTube in 2014, 2015.
And similarly, if you came to the session this morning about Roblox, you would have heard that there are lots of different ways to get into the platform. Similarly to approaching YouTube in different ways. With Roblox, you can do something quite small. You can partner with a successful game. You don't have to jump in and build a complete world in order to have presence there. Pete, it sounds like a lot of this echoes the Fanatomy model, that even for a smaller creator, if you can attract your core fans and then start to build on that. You have thoughts on how to build from a
yeah, everyone said it here now, and we heard it in the Roblox conversation earlier. I mean, and just echoing some of those things into that Fanatomy model, like there are certain metrics that help you understand, not if you're building mass, but if you're building fans, right? So a really good first metric when you're just starting off is like your first users. Just get in touch with them and talk to them, because that Minecraft started with their first users and has gone massive because they were getting feedback really, really early on from how their early community wanted that story to be told to them. And they're the ones that had a need for your content because they found your content before you've even been big. So I think they're hugely valuable. The second metric as you start to grow that I always find really useful is organic traffic. You can measure it. It's a piece of data. When you start, it'll be 0.001%. But if in 3 months you can get to 0.005%, you've 500% growth. And I think that's a really, really useful metric to look at. The third metric, which everyone here is talking about, and Alison spoke about from a Brazil perspective, Latin American perspective, is how we get people to go from one platform to another platform. As you start to grow that brand, if you have a way of capturing the fact that someone watched a YouTube channel and then watched it or played it on Roblox or created it on Roblox, that's really, really valuable to know that, because all of a sudden you know that someone's taking a brand and creating a channel across platforms. So those, I think, are and they're all built into the kind of Fanatomy model that you and I worked on many years ago with Nickelodeon, which is basically allowing your user not to sit outside your brand and your content, but be inside your brand and your content. I think the first users, everyone's spoken about first users here, which, if you're creating a piece of content, you're always going to have a first user, talk to them.
I want to turn to you talked a lot about the algorithm and how from the early days when it was really, there was serendipity out there to the algorithm really kind of often feeding you into a funnel. And I think Melvin may also have some thoughts on this. I've had a long feeling that algorithm shouldn't be a dirty word, that everything runs on algorithms. You couldn't start your car in the morning without an algorithm, and yet we've allowed it to become this thing that we all fear. Oh, the algorithm the issue. Algorithms can be good or bad. The issue, I think, is that the algorithm that we're using now, the recommendation algorithms, really are based on actual past behavior and sort of funneling in toward regression to the mean. Are there good things about the algorithm? Are there ways that people could exploit the functions of the algorithm in order to help people find what they want, as opposed to just getting funneled?
I can talk to that one. I think so. I think one of the things Pete touched on is, kids they get an interest area and they like to funnel down that interest area, and you need to feed that in a lot of ways if you're growing a franchise. And I mean this for the older end of kids' audience, sort of 7 to 12. So I think there is something there. They're getting a lot of what they want from it, and I think that's an enjoyable experience for them. I think there are ways that you can hook onto that and find ways of getting your content discovered within it. But I think there is something where it is fitting into an audience need of finding an interest area and wanting to be consumed by it. And I'm sure you've all got examples of this. Got a kid in your lives who's into something, like into Harry Potter. They just want all of it. They want all of it all at once, endlessly. And I don't think that's a bad thing. That's how you grow fandoms, of how you give that need to that interest. So I think there's something there, but equally, the challenge is there's no serendipity and stuff's not getting discovered. So I think it is two parts to it. But yeah, I do think we need to think about what interests kids and how they like to consume content.
And it sounds like with some media literacy training, young people could be trained to use the, to put the algorithm to use themselves, to help train it to what they're looking for, not just to feeding them what they've done before.
I think what Melvin spoke about is the next evolution. I like what you said about YouTube. YouTube, in 5-10 years' time, YouTube might not be the big platform we're talking about. And I think one of the things we're seeing now, Melvin, as a digital native, is at the moment we're still creating these platforms, we're creating these algorithms, we're making the decisions on content, and we didn't grow up in digital. I think the big evolution is going to be when people like Melvin who are entering this workplace are now building solutions which are built on their native experiences rather than like me, 43 now, 13 years ago, looking down on Melvin and thinking, well, what does Melvin need? And I do know, because I speak to people, and I think it's really important we spoke about audiences, but I think that's the big evolution. And from an algorithm perspective, what they can do well, because they're just it-then statements, right? So it's just, it tracks behavior, it goes, you're doing that, so we're going to give you this. What I'd like to see algorithms, and a challenge to people who kind of, the engineers that build this, is rather than go, okay, if someone is in a stressful situation, and they're watching, had a stressful day, they come home, rather than give them stressful content and the algorithm goes, oh, that's working really well because they're really down and stressful. What I want algorithms to start doing is going, well, what's a good behavior? Well, let's give them some calming content. Let's give them an access to a way to solve it. At the moment, what it does is it goes, oh, you're stressed. Here's a load of stuff that's going to make you cry. It's like, well, how about going, oh, you're stressed. Here's a load of stuff that makes you smile, which they currently don't do. Well, they do.
How could it actually get to that point? I mean, it's only feeding off what it already knows about you, rather than the opposite, maybe.
But we would know if someone's coming home and watching something that makes them cry, to the point about micro-testing, like, why not just put a piece of content that goes like, oh, you're just watching loads of depressing content, and that works really, really well because the pharmaceuticals can sell you a load of, Ozempics and stuff like that that make you feel better about yourself. So obviously it monetizes well, not in kids' space, thankfully. But why not go, okay, well, here's something that, let's just try something that makes you happy. And if that piece of happy content works, you can keep feeding that piece of happy content. But I think at the moment, because we're trying to keep them on the platform, we just keep giving the same of what they've just been watching. But I think if we interrupt it, and you've all spoken about trialing and testing new content, new characters, it's very possible to then start creating better positive behaviours on those platforms rather than just addiction loops.
So I've come armed with more questions than we'll have. Oh, go ahead.
Just one thing, maybe in an ideal world, particularly when it comes to kids' content, we would love to have, at some point, a mix of algorithmic curation and manual curation.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what is happening a little bit on the YouTube Kids streaming service. But I think this really this would be fantastic, if we could have on kids content a little bit of manual curation complementing the algorithmic curation. Yeah. It would be an incredible opportunity to surface new content or at least, original content, new content, and, content that basically is not necessarily recommended today by the existing algorithmic systems.
In the way that channels used to hammer something new and say, you love this show, you love SpongeBob, we're going to put something after it that we think you're going to like. And trust us on this, and we'll get back to the other things later, but give us a chance.
Yes.
I'm shocked to see that the solid red light is on, bombing us toward the flashing red light. I want to get your questions. Do we have questions in the audience?
Go ahead,
David.
Yeah, yes.
To jump in on the point about the algorithms,
Yeah,
I think
sorry.
the point that you said around the addiction loop, I think it then goes to give control back to the user, having control over the algorithm, because the algorithm follows their pattern. It's always going to give them sort of that dopamine rush. I think what needs to be done is, there needs to be a lot done around teaching people emotional regulation, but what the system can do is allow young people to maybe switch off pattern recognition behavior, so then they can just be on the platform and do what they want, rather than just constantly giving them sort of what they normally do. I think giving control back to the user is probably a powerful move that could give autonomy back to young people who use these platforms.
And turn it off. Too.
Yeah.
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 Greg.
Hello, I'm Greg from here and the Children's Media Foundation. And there's a couple of tiny points I want to make. One is that in moving towards the next Children's Media Summit, which we plan to do, along with broadcasters, industry associations and others, and under advice from the civil service and indeed the committee, we will be doing that through the autumn. One of the things the Children's Media Foundation wants to bring to that is some new ideas about using AI to grade and categorize content for its public value, for its experiential value for children, and for its, if you like, for its serendipitous value. It's something we very much want to talk to Melvin about. But secondly, what I'd like to ask is to bring us back to the sustainable business models question, is I'd like to ask Pete and the others, can we get YouTube to change its algorithm? And to lead into that, Pete, tell us about Moonbug and toys.
You're on the hot seat.
Yeah. So here's my thought. No, we can't get YouTube to change the algorithm because, as Greg said, it's $1 billion or $50 billion, and it works bloody well for the rest of their company. And they're not incentivized to make good kids' content. What I do think will happen, or I hope will happen, and we've kind of initiated here, is I think when they're given like just black and white content and nothing else because the algorithm's done it, they'll go. They'll just say, actually, this content is this platform does not work for me anymore. Because
except they don't, because they're addicted.
No, because I think there'll come a stage. I remember having a conversation with Christopher Keenan many years ago about when they took Pokemon onto Warner Brothers, perhaps, I can't remember. And kids liked it, so they put more and more and more Pokemon on until the whole channel was Pokemon, and then kids went. Because they're like, it's just one thing, right? There's no variety in there. So I do think audiences have the sense and the desire and the need to want more than just, vote this way or vote that way. They want dynamic content. They want to explore and go down into the fandoms. And I think I won't talk too much about Moonbug or any of those huge brands, but one of the big things, of course, is that, brands need multiple ways to monetize. Like, as we spoke about, like monetizing through ads is increasingly difficult to kids. And therefore, you need to sell consumer products. It takes 3 or 4 years to build up a big enough audience to sell CP. And what you do there has to be as good as what you do here. You have to join these experiences up, and this is something that you're all focused on. Is like an experience with blocks on BBC is as high quality as an experience as blocks as a toy. It's the same level of quality. Like going into schools with blocks and seeing like all the blocks materials in schools, it's such high quality. So those touch points that you have that are critical to monetizing long term, because you're not with ads you're spending $1 to get $1 back, which is fine if you've got $500 million, because you'll get $550 million back, and $50 million is quite nice in your pocket. But you're just constantly spending that until someone else can take a $1 back, $1.5 back, and they, whereas actually to build and sustain long brands like blocks, like Warrior Cats that was spoken about in the Roblox thing, that requires multiple monetization spaces. Otherwise, you're just there for 5 years and then you're gone. I don't know if that quite answers the question, but not saying CoComelon will be gone in a couple of years, but.
I am very sad to see that the flashing red light has gone off, and I thought we would have more time for questions, for conversation. Conversation will keep going on, I'm sure. I have some announcements for you, so don't stand up, but let's first thank the panel. Let's thank Melvin.